I'm going to talk about what my team and I built, this tool called Backpack that helps us make positive social impact globally. Okay. I'm sure there's something in it for everyone. So the 10,000 foot view is that the developer experiences impact learning. So that is both the individuals who are matriculating through code schools and those who are experienced developers. And that's probably why most of you are here, is because of the developer experience of DevX that HashiCorp's tools provide. Okay. In our work at Civic Hacker, we realized that DevX accelerates social impact. So if we are able to leverage the developer experience of various open source tools, we can put those solutions together quite quickly to relieve any pain points that vulnerable communities have. And so also specifically in this talk, I'm going to cover some of the specific HashiCorp tools that we use to build what we call anti-oppressive tech, which is our theory of change. So at civichacker.com, we're the humans there. And our mission is to use software, policy, and data to empower activists and engineer liberation. We feel that we can build the technology that can help relieve pain points for underserved, underrepresented, and vulnerable communities. So that goes for a lot of not-for-profits, that go for various government agencies, as well as some startups or well-established companies that are trying to solve big global problems. So let's start with the history of code schools, right? Once upon a time, I was a code school teacher, okay? So I would be the person in the classroom, standing at the podium with my laptop, trying my best to help these other individuals enter into the field, okay? And so I've worked with people across many different age ranges. So we're talking about from the early 20s all the way up to 50s and 60s. So some people in the classroom were on their third or fourth career, okay? I'm a true believer that anyone at any age can broach into technology, and they can use the know-how that they gain from learning software development to change things in their community. So the why. People go to code schools because they want to change their lives from the better. So there are some promises that if you get into certain STEAM or technology fields, that you may be able to make a better living. So they may want to change their lives for the better in that way. They may feel like additional technical know-how or gaining more knowledge will help them fulfill their passions. They may have a passion for solving certain problems that are in close proximity to themselves. And also they are code schools because they desire guided learning experiences. So personally, I learned open software development through the open source community. I jumped on the forums. I committed on GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLab, SourceForge, all the things, and interacted with those individuals across the world and read almost many billions of lines of code. I'm sure I'm lurking and reading all of your codes that even if you're here, I'm pretty sure I've read your code at some point. So that's why people are there. And also that promise to quote unquote feel the demand. And I'm saying, but not really. And the problem that I'm gonna talk about is gonna explain why it's not really a demand issue. So the problems at code school is that the employers say that the graduates aren't prepared, meaning that they may understand the programming language, they may understand the tech stack. However, they have not had a chance to practice the workflow used to write software. Usually that's the weakest part of any of the graduates that come from code schools. Also, it's localized market saturation. So at some point, if people remember recent history, Ruby on Rails was a very popular and still a very popular web framework. So a lot of code schools that spun up around that time was like, we're going to teach all the people who come through our doors Ruby on Rails. And so they're graduating tens of people at a time and quickly in those local markets, saturated. No employers are no longer looking for people with that specific skill set. And then the other part of code schools historically is to bring your own culture, bring your own device culture. And so that's when we know that code schools are not going to provide their students with the devices. You have to come with your own device and be ready to learn how to code and learn software development. So I'm going to talk specifically about the bring your own device pain point. This is why this talk is here. Okay. So first, in the United States during the pandemic, we coined a term called the homework gap. And so that was a term used to describe when grade school students could not participate in virtual learning experiences and do homework. Hence, the homework gap. In any code school, even before the pandemic, there was this learning loss due to people bringing their own machines. So we're talking about heterogeneous hardware specifications, reoccurring issues like we can't install the tool to help us with this specific unit because some students have low disk space and memory, and that's a hard problem to solve. And then as you're making sure that everyone can start the lesson on the same kind of equal playing field, it throws off the class schedule. Even today in 2023, many instructors tell me that it takes weeks, some at least a week, to get everybody's machine ready to go. So days, weeks can easily throw off a schedule when you're trying to learn, definitely virtually. Okay. So addressing these pain points, I've done many things at school. So as a code school instructor, I've tried to focus on browser-centric learning environments. So I'm pretty sure a lot of you have seen those things pop up over the years. Instructors usually have to go in and change the BIOS settings or instruct their students how to change the BIOS settings. So now we got to talk about BIOS, what those are, what it is and what it isn't. Sometimes there's operating system updates we have to provide. I can remember the pain installing Windows service packs so we can install the development tools so that we can begin work. It's very painful. And then even sometimes instructors have to distribute entire VMs. We're talking about VirtualBox or VMware, assuming that those computers are even capable of virtualization or even can have powerful enough to run a separate operating system as an image. So at that time, with all that tooling and automation and software-defined networks, I expected that bring your own device pain points would just be fine. I should have a full head of hair doing just fine. Okay. But the actual experience was more like face palming, just like how Picard kind of feels in this picture here. And that experience, this lack of experience or actual or good behavior around us being able to provide these address these pain points is still happening today. So why are we having that when we have all of the open source? Billions of lines of code have been written, probably trillions at this point. We have all the computing power we can ever need. We have the internet, which is even getting faster every day. We are still having this issue. Okay. So why are students doing code schools again? It's because they want to educate and ultimately liberate themselves. Education is a conduit to liberation, regardless of what part of human history you look at. Okay. And so they're learning these specific tracks just so they can get to the outcome. They don't care about the language itself. They don't care about the stack itself. They're trying to get to the outcome of being able to, like I showed before, try to change their lives. Okay. And so we've seen these tools pop up over time, right? We got the code pins, we got the spaces, all the different types of spaces. We got the katakotas, all the VS codes. There's so many tools, there's too many to list. So those tools exist. But my challenge to you and to everyone here is that given the developer experience that we have with open source today, it's so easy to build and manage an environment that solves this problem that you don't even need them. So again, we feel that we can combine software, policy, and data in a way that empowers the activists and aid the liberation of vulnerable communities, vulnerable underserved groups, and underrepresented communities. And so we think any friction to learning is just inherently oppressive. That's what they're using to try to get out of their situation, right? So the humans over here at Civic Hacker are trying to build what we think are cybernetic tools that help bring that liberation within reach. And that's why it's an arm. It's because we're going to use the open source tools that some of you all have developed or improved or thought of and combine them in such a way very quickly so that, we can easily extend additional appendage for these groups that need the most help. And we're going to do stuff we already know, right? We're not going to just no secret sauces here. So stuff we already know. All of the billions of lines of code, all the times I'm lurking through your code bases, I'm looking for something that's going to give us enough information and enough opportunity to be able to deploy quickly to the communities that need it the most. So a lot of the work that we do is DevOps and DevX centric. So in this particular talk, there's the HashiCorp configuration language. We use Nomad, like we'll talk about showing in this talk. We use Terraform and all the other friends. And there's no secret sauce. This stuff is easy to build at this point. So I feel like going forward, we should have no issues of individuals in code schools having trouble getting their development environment set up. It should take minutes, not days. So enter Backpack. It's just a remote developer environment that we use to make positive impact globally. Okay. Yes, there are other providers of remote development environments. However, are they better? We don't know, and we don't care that if it's better or not. Our job is not to compete directly with all the other tools that everyone thinks they can do it better and squeeze the bits out of the machines faster. It's about us being able to make quick changes that make real change and that make real impact in people's lives. So if we can write it quickly, we do it, right? And also the bring your own device paying for it doesn't end at code school. We've seen a gap of 3 to 4 years after people graduate from code schools where they can't simply get a job, right? And so that during that time, you're supposed to be like committing, doing things on GitHub and GitLab and all the other Git providers and demonstrating that you're a self-learner, self-taught, and that you're motivated, and you're supposed to be building out this brilliant digital resume. But you can't do that if your machine that you have doesn't work well. You can't install the things. Okay. So, and also, like I said, we care about being able to respond to oppressive threats quickly. So when I say oppressive threats, I mean systemic threats and threats that appear due to like changes in the environment or changes in things within like certain geopolitical situations. So we want to be able to build these tools, these cybernetic extensions to our communities and societies very quickly. Okay. So across any remote development work, right? Because it not only happens at code schools, happen after code schools, and it happens while you're on the job. There's all these cross-cutting concerns. No, these are not the cross-cutting concerns for managing clusters in general, but specifically in terms of you being able to work and work efficiently with teams of people in a safe environment. You have to make sure that you have access to your environment over TLS. You want to be able to run services on privileged ports. Like I want to run server from the Django framework. I need to be able to do that easily. I need standard shell access. Yeah, I know there's a lot of code-centric developer environments, but some of your work won't be in the code. It's going to be in the environment that houses it, right? You're going to need access to certain, command line interface tools, and you're going to have to be proficient in those tools. And you got to have an environment that has pre-installed and that allows you to practice. Okay, you're going to need some kind of text editor, right? We already know that we have plenty of text editors out there, but it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't be about the text editor that's in the environment. All we need is for the code and the environment to be there. And it doesn't matter if you like VS Code or Atom or Vim or Emacs and non-GUI mode. You should be able to do your work efficiently and go about your business. Okay. Also, you need to be able to save your work. Not everyone commits their code and pushes it up, and then you're done. Like you have other things that aren't code in your environments. You might have some .env files. You might have some like a SQLite database, so you can just run the software that you're developing. You have all these other things that are also present that you need to persist. Okay, and then you need access to secrets. So I'm gonna kind of go through all of these concerns. Let's do it. Okay. So first, we were able to run Nomad over TLS. Yes, you can provision your own certificates. Yes, you can build it you can use the Nomad configuration to do so, but we're talking about over VPN. It doesn't matter if you're talking about a centralized VPN or a decentralized VPN like the WireGuard kind of variants and things like that. We're able to run Nomad in that. So that's the only way the nodes talk to one another. Okay, works out just fine. Okay. Next is agnostic access over TLS. So yes, we need the nodes for the cluster that builds up the cluster to be able to talk securely, but also developers need consistent, secure access over to these environments. My team has a mix of people who can use command line, text editors, and then some that use browser-based stuff. And so I don't care. I don't care what my team uses. I just want them to make sure that the connection is encrypted. So yeah, we can use modern web browsers, totally fine. I don't care. It shouldn't matter. You shouldn't be bound to using the browser. And then, secure shell still works. So we can definitely use that. As you can see, just set the network port. Make sure it goes, right? And then even if you want to do even further, organizations can say, hey, a bar in order for you to work is to install the client certificate. So we have client off. All that's easy to do at this point. This is point and click. You go into settings and install the thing. Done. So here we go. We're going to do our nomadic Docker workloads. You don't have to use Docker. You can use anything, any driver that you want. We just happen to use Docker because we care that we're going to do it quickly, and we're going to make sure that we can use it use it to do our other work. Okay. So we probably do as a batch job. We do these parameterized jobs, make sure that we can spin up variants of these workloads. That's only difference is the data that is connected to that task. So everyone gets the same image, everyone gets the same environment, but the workspaces where people save their data is different, and the actual individual that's accessing it is different. That's the only thing that's different. Okay. In terms of saving your work, given that we're leveraging Nomad, that means that we can also leverage the container storage interface, which is a standard. So you can pull those CSI plugins from Kubernetes and use them in Nomad. That's a great way. That's a great tool. And so now we have a personalized environment that supports the persistence of things that aren't code. Okay. And so as you can see up top, we're just setting the little volume storage, user storage, and then below we see we mounted it with our driver. And so this could completely replace laptop distribution and collection. Remember, we are in a world where bring your own device is the reality. So if I don't have to physically send you hardware and you have to physically send it back at the end of the engagement, that's a win. But given that it's done in the employer-employees scenario, then yeah, I want access to that virtualized computer that you use for your work. That is exactly how employers work. And so we can extend this to the cloud by providing these types of environments. Also, we're going to make sure that you pre-install your tools for your team. If you're using AWS CLI or whatever tool or Terraform, you want to make sure you pre-install it, right? I'm not sure what you're using to provision and set up your Docker images, but we use SaltStack and other similar configuration management tools. So definitely this can work with SaltStack or Packer provisioners or Puppet or anything like that. And that just helps you make sure that you have your Node versions installed, your Python versions installed. Your workers, your developers, your teammates should not have to install anything new to get everything they want. And if you have to install anything new, everyone should get a copy. Everyone should be on the right version because we can automate the deployment and building of these Docker images and distribute it out easily over Nomad. Win, 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 win. Next, we're going to standardize the shell environment. Yes, I want everyone to use basic dot files, and we're going to set the dot files up so that it's easy to use terminal. And if you're learning how to use a terminal, because writing software is a learning experience, then we're going to build in the functionality and plugins of that shell so that you can know what commands exist and what don't. That's a very big deal when it comes to learning how to write software. It's like, can you even get the history of the command you wrote yesterday when the teacher told you, hey, this is the command that you use to install a Node package, right? You want to be able to remember that easily. Okay. Next is access control. Okay, so some tools out there allow you to build access control lists when it comes to accessing various nodes inside of private networks. So here's an example. We can have an access control kind of setup that only allows Uncle Sam to access his own environment, no one else's. So we can have that protected. So yes, authentication, and then you're only authorized to access your personal environment. Anyone with developer experience knows that on the day-to-day, you should not have to run sudo. If you're running sudo on the day-to-day, understand that something's broken, right? And so with Backpack, we just make sure that our environment, our developers, we make sure that they're running unprivileged. The containers themselves are running unprivileged. The user that they're interacting with as in the container is also unprivileged. And we don't have to install the software or tools or commands that we don't think are necessary. Only install what you need. So that shouldn't be in anyone's environment if you're trying to actually just do work, because you should not have to run sudo on the day-to-day. Okay. And then you have to eventually actually write code, right? So you got your VS Code and Fringe, you have the plain old text editors, and then you should be able to just get pushed to any provider. So if the tool is bound to a specific version control provider, then clearly that's going to limit who you can work with and where, and also limit some of the knowledge that you gain. Most people pick a provider to look for code to learn, but not many are actually searching through them all. There's no unified interface. So people are somewhat siloed when it comes to learning how to code. That is a very interesting fact. Okay. And then next is access to secrets, right? So in SSH mode, it's at Civic Hacker, we have two modes. We have the regular mode and Jedi mode. And Jedi mode is that you're doing it through SSH. And our VPN provider allows us to do that just fine, right? And so Uncle Sam needs access to secrets. And we don't exactly want the dot files just present, just laying around everywhere. How about we just encrypt it so that only Uncle Sam's private key can decrypt it, regardless if it's on a hardware device or their laptop, can then inject the secrets that they need into their remote environment. There you go. Now that's easy. Okay. Thank you, HashiCorp, for having me in this talk, and I hope that you also build your own backpack environment at your organization.